Hello, welcome to Captain Dorja's Armory. This is Captain Dorja. Today we're going to be looking at another subscriber replay. This one, I only have one subscriber replay in my channel, and it's actually from the same guy as this is. So we're going to see another subscriber replay from Roachie. He's going to be driving his E-75, and it was a heroic battle. That's how I'm going to phrase that. The E-75 is such a good tank. Tier for tier, one of the strongest tanks in the game. It's got everything. It's strong on all three sides of the Iron Triangle. It's got phenomenal armor. The armor on this tank is just amazing. Properly positioned, angled, you can just sustain heinous amounts of damage. It's one of the most resilient tanks in the game. While its firepower could be better, it is still got a very strong gun. The accuracy is not that great. A lot of German players are used to very accurate guns. .38 on the E-75, not the most accurate, but it hits like a freight train at 490 damage per shot. The penetration is pretty good for a tier 9. 246, that's not great. It's not awful. It's not quite as high as the M103, but it's pretty standard, fairly standard for a tier 9. 246 is still good pen. You gotta kind of pick your shots against tier 10s, but other tier 9s and especially tier 8s and God forbid tier 7s, you can just wreck. Slow rate of fire. The biggest downfall of this gun is it doesn't fire very often, but in 2 shots you can do 1,000 damage, so that's always nice. And then mobility. The mobility of the E-75 is surprising. For any of you guys out there who are trying to get E100, you see this engine, it's a 50,000 experience engine. Research the engine. If you don't already have it unlocked from the E50 and you've got an E75, do not skip the engine and go to the E100. Research the friggin' engine. I would research the engine after everything else, but when you have this engine, the E75 is a slow, lumbering heavy. When you get this engine, you jump up, you almost double your horsepower. For a tank that weighs 92 tons, this thing can move. It is just, it's not a medium tank. It's not like you're suddenly driving a T-54, but the E-75 with its fully upgraded engine is so worth it. It just totally changes the dynamic of the tank. For a heavy that is as well armored and as well armed as this tank, your mobility is very good. I would rate it as only a little bit worse than the M103. And the M103, its strong suits are gun and mobility. So, you're almost as mobile as a friggin' mobility tank. The E-75 is just phenomenal. It's a brutal heavy tank. Great tank. I definitely repurchased it. It is just phenomenal. I can't sing the praises of this tank enough. So we're going to jump into the replay. We're going to look at Roachie's E-75 video, and I hope you enjoy it. I definitely enjoyed watching it. It was just a heroic battle. So let's crack on, as the mighty Jingles would say. Alrighty, so we are loading into the battle. We are with Roachie in his E-75, and we're in a Tier 9 battle on El Haluf. Let's just expand the minimap so we can see what's going on better. You can see that it's a Tier 9 game. It is an encounter battle. Each team has a pretty balanced distribution of Tier 9s, actually. Roachie's team has his E-75, an M103, and T-54E1. The enemy has an E-75, an M103, and a Leopard prototype. After the 3 Tier 9s, the balance of the teams consists of Tier 8s, with 4 Tier 7s garnishing the enemy team, and 3 Tier 7s garnishing Roachie's team. So, about the only real difference is that Roachie's team has 1 extra Tier 8, and they also have a lot of tank destroyers. So, honestly, I think this is a pretty fair matchmaker, and it's a pretty good matchmaker for an E-75. No Tier 10s to worry about. Only three other Tier 9s, and one of them's a Leopard prototype. So if you can get the gun on the Leopard prototype, you can smash him to tiny bits. And then everything else is Tier 8 and Tier 7, stuff that you can pretty easily handle. So, with a heavy tank and an encounter battle, as you would expect, Roachie's heading over to the attrition corner, A2, A3 area. Personally, I used to like El Haloof. I thought it was a fun map to play on, and in recent months, I don't really care for it so much. I'm tired of the heavy tank attrition battle over on this corner. I mean, with a medium tank, it's a complete other matter. I enjoy playing mediums on El Haloof because there's a fun counter push on the opposite flank, which I usually enjoy. So, not a big fan of heavy tank gameplay on this match anymore, but on this map anymore rather. But with mediums, it's still a decent game. If you get a fast TD, you can have fun on it too, but TDs are almost even worse than heavies for just a boring game on El Haloof. You just basically, I just super camp. Kind of interesting thing that I just want to shout out right here. Roachie is a member of Clan Cirque 2, which, for those of you out there who are fans of Circumflexes, Cirque 2 is one of the kind of Circumflexes fan clans. So that's cool that he's part of Cirque 2. Anyway, on with the battle. He's come up over here and he's been being engaged. Puts a big hit into that T-25 AT. More than half that guy's HP. Honestly, I don't know what that 25 AT was even thinking coming there in a match like this. And the enemy E-75 is doing something similar. Honestly, where that enemy E-75 is, I would rate that as a bad position. You're just potentially too exposed. Now, there's no artillery, so the real threat to the E-75 up there would be artillery, and there isn't any. But I just would not advise that kind of a position. Even for a tank as rugged as the E-75, I just don't think it's a good idea. So you can see the enemy, they're actually shooting high explosive ammo at Roachie, and somebody just penned him right there. That was probably the Tiger hit for 222 damage. Could have been the 25 AT. But anyway, Roachie's only sustained about 300 damage so far, and he puts the kibosh on the Tiger. So he's put 5 shots in already. He's already dealt 2,200 damage. He's put a good hit onto the enemy E-75, halved the HP on the 28 or on the T-25 AT. Put a big hit into the Leopard 1. Kills the T-25 AT. That guy, I mean, I don't know what that guy was thinking he was going to do. Freaking fighting an E-75, for God's sakes. And the AC-48 is not a pushover tank either. Now this 25 AT is just giving cover for... Well, he's not even giving cover for the enemy. He ends up actually giving cover to Roachie. These guys think that they're taking cover from the E-75, but it turns out the E-75 is actually taking cover from them. So here is where Roachie starts to work the wreck of the 25 AT. He fires under the wreck and into the bottom of the enemy E-75 and deals 528 damage. You can see the M103 and the E-75 shooting back at Roachie. They're hitting his upper plate and they're bouncing. And Roachie's just put another big hit in the lower plate of that E-75. So Roachie's now done about 1,600 damage to that E-75, and the E-75's backing off. But there's a full health M103 to take his place, so that's not good. This AC-48 here is pretty rambunctious. I don't think in his circumstance I would be pushing up quite so aggressively. I would let the E-75 with more armor and a bigger gun and almost double the health. I would let the E-75 do the dirty work here, but Skydiver here, he's definitely not a pansy. This guy likes to be in the action. And I like to be in the action too, so I guess I'm holding against him. So the M103 blows off Roachie's track, and Roachie, again firing under the wreck of the dead 25 AT, puts a huge hit into the M103, 506 damage. M103 detracts the AC-48. Roachie's just biding his time, trying to get the AC-48 to fall back. There you go. E-75 half healths the AC-48, and then the M103 hits him again. Roachie puts another big hit through the lower plate of the M103. This guy's got to be feeling it. I can't believe that E-75 is still like so far up in the action. But, he had a good shot on the AC-48, and he took it. The AC-48's taken down. So now Roachie's up here. I would say by himself, but he's really not by himself. He's getting covering fire from an AC-46 and from a Ferdinand. And there's also 3 guys back here that if the enemy push too aggressive, they'll start taking big hits from those guys as well. So Roachie is alone, but he's not that alone. Now, M103 just put the first really effective shot into Roachie, probably through the lower plate. Yeah, right through the lower plate. You can see that right there. But these wrecked TDs are giving Roachie excellent cover, and he's working it really, really well. Unfortunately, if you look down at the map, you can see the enemy T-32 and IS-6 are breaking through on the right flank. ISC-152 is calling for reinforcements from his own position, but it's pretty unlikely that he's going to get them. So the enemy is still trying to put the pressure on Roachie right here. You can see the T-34 trying to get into it. He actually manages to bounce a shot. So, that 102 millimeter armor, if you fire at it at an extreme angle like that, it may only be 102 millimeters, but it can still deflect a hit. So we'll go back to fixed camera so you guys don't all get nauseous and vomit or anything. And enemy E-75, right there, that was one of the only things Roachie does in this entire game that I probably wouldn't have done. He had a choice of the lower plate at an extreme angle or the side of the E-75. He tried for the lower plate and bounced. I probably would have gone for the side armor. But at any rate, it's not that big of a deal. You can see the enemy heavy tank attack on the right flank is still pressing in and continuing to do damage. Roachie puts a big hit onto that T-34. That guy's not feeling so good anymore. Basically, everyone who's come in front of Roachie has either been killed or is at extremely low health. Mostly because of Roachie, but also the TDs behind him are doing good damage as well. And it should be noted that now the enemy have basically stopped engaging Roachie. They're pretty much only firing at the TDs behind him. They're knocking out his support, and that I would say is a good move on the part of the enemy, because not only is it depriving Roachie of potential support, it's depriving his team of potential reinforcements for that rapidly crumbling right flank. Now, the only other thing that I think I might have done differently than Roachie, this is unfair criticism, because this is a classic case of hindsight is 2020 and like armchair generaling in the extreme. So I'm going to say this as a possible contingency, but I will freely admit that this is not something I would probably have done myself. At this point, we know that Roachie has 4 tanks in front of him, 3 tanks in front of him. He's got a Panther, an E-75, and a T-34, all on about 100 health. If he were to have pushed right now, knocked out all 3 of these tanks, and kept going, he might have been able to essentially assault his way through the defeat, kill everything. If he were able to have killed everything in here fast enough, he might have been able to reinforce these guys and save his team. But I honestly would not have done it myself until probably about now, and even now, this is an extremely risky maneuver because these 3 tank destroyers have not been spotted, and they are almost always right here. And when he crested that hill to go after that E-75, he was very, very lucky. That was my cell phone. He was very lucky to not take a hit from potentially about 1,200 alpha damage from those 3 TDs. But as it turns out, none of them are in the TD position. So hindsight is 2020. Armchair generals have all the answers before they had to make decisions. So in this case, he might have been able to push up this hill sooner and kind of outkill the enemy. but that is an extremely unfair criticism to make, and I just want it to be perfectly clear that I'm not even making that as a criticism. I'm just saying it was a possible option, and that I don't believe that I would have done it, and I believe the reason why Roachie didn't do it either is probably the same reason why I didn't do it. It was just too risky with those 3 tank destroyers not spotted to risk cresting the hill until it became the only option available to him. And he waited to crest until it was the only option available. And then only after it was his only option and he dared risk it, was we find out that he would have been able to do it sooner. So, some people might say that was a fault of his, but I would not go that far. And personally, I don't believe that I would have made the push that he made until about the same time that he did it, actually. So, this has just been essentially a flawless game. It's one of those situations where you're doing a massive carry, and as you're sitting there just blasting everything that comes under your guns, you're just praying to God that your team will stay alive long enough for you to finish what you've started. And unfortunately, Roachie's team has not been able to stay alive long enough, so he's now on 7,000 damage, 5 kills, going in a 1v5. He's got 249 health, and he has to fight 3 tier 8 tank destroyers, 2 tier 8 heavies, one of whom is a T-32 on 5 kills. So that T-32 obviously knows what he's doing. And Roachie has managed 2 good hits onto the enemy so far. He's left the ISU at like 12 hit points, and he put a really good hit through a turret weak spot on the IS-3. But none of these tanks are one-shottable. Right there, he gets unlucky and hits the gun mantlet on the Jagdpanther 2. Probably about the only spot on that tank that's actually got any armor. So his shot actually deflects. The Jagdpanther and the ISU are behind the rock and they're capping. The IS-3 is behind the hill. So the only way he's going to be able to get the IS-3 is if he moves all the way out to where he's very, very vulnerable. It's just, at this point, you're prolonging the inevitable. You're attempting to do as much damage as possible. Maybe get yourself a defender medal before the enemy caps. And unfortunately for Roachie's sake, the enemy T-32 rolls up behind him and puts the last shot through his back. Perfect move by the T-32. Excellent game by Roachie. Unfortunately, it was a defeat for him, but it was well played by the enemy team, and a little bit of a teammate letdown in this case. But you win some, you lose some. At least he had a good defeat, not a abysmal one like I've been getting every time I drive my Leopard prototype. So post battle results here, we can see that Roachie does not have a premium account, and he still pulled down 916 experience on the defeat and 67,000 credits. He managed a sniper medal, which is pretty nice. Just for those of you out there who roll with a premium account pretty much all the time, like me, if he'd had premium, that would have been a 1,374 experience defeat. That's one hell of a loss. Let me just say that right now. And 100,000 credits. I mean, a tier 9 making 100,000 credits, you got to do some work to make that much money. Even in a tank as good as the E-75, 100,000 credits, that's insane. We can see here the just litany of destruction. That's what I've decided I'm going to call this. Roachie's litany of destruction. Killed the Tiger, did a lot of damage. Killed the E-75, did a lot of damage. Killed the Panther, did quite a bit of damage. Put a big hit into that ISU for 522. Put a pretty solid hit onto the Leopard prototype for 422. Deflected a shot off the Jagdpanther 2, which is unfortunate. Killed the T-34 and, just ravaged him. Killed and ravaged the 25 AT. Put a 530 damage hit onto the IS-3. That's a nasty hit. And did 1,477 damage to the M103. Plus, he even got a little bit of spawning credit. Not much, but, a little bit of spawning credit on the E-75. So, team score, no surprise to find Roachie at the top of the list in damage. More than double the damage of anybody else on his team. The M103 is the only one who even approached It's really disappointing to see something like an ISU 152 only managing 1,400 damage. Basically, that guy put in 2 shots. And a T-54 E1 only managing 1,200 damage. That's pretty disappointing as well. Some of the other tanks weren't quite so well off as Roachie was, matchmaker wise, but you'd still like to hope that these guys may be tier 7s and isolated tier 8s in a match of mostly tier 8s and 9s, but you'd like to think that they would have been able to put out a little more than that. Now on the enemy team, you had some amazing damage output by the IS-6. That 5,000 in IS-6, that's pretty good. 4,000 in T-32, that's pretty good. Plus this guy had 6 kills in the Top Gun. 2,300 from their ISU, 2,000 from this T-32. The C-75 was essentially ineffective for most of the match, and he still managed 3 kills and 1,800 damage. So even, basically herp-derping around, that's not really quite fair. But basically, he assaulted the unshakable fortress that was Roachie's E-75 for quite a long time and didn't really do anything in that time period. But even around doing, all the time he spent basically failing to kill Roachie, he was able to pump out 1,800 damage and get 3 kills. So, that 1,800 damage may not be that high for an E-75, but considering all the time he spent fruitlessly engaging Roachie, that's actually a pretty good performance from that guy. Detailed report real quick here. 23 shots fired, 22 hits. Most of those shots were pretty close range, so, fairly easy shots. But some of them were not quite so straightforward and easy as that. He managed 18 penetrations. I think he made a couple of dodgy shots, but in the heat of battle, you got a choice between a sharply angled lower plate or sharply angled side armor. And we've all fired at the lower plate when maybe in hindsight we should have fired at the side, but whatever. Still, the guy put out 7,700 damage. That's just intense. He managed to take 22 hits and was only killed at the very end by a butt shot from the T-32. Absolute right move from the T-32, by the way, to just go up there and flank Roachie and take him out. And we can see that without premium, he pulled down a 19,400 profit. With a premium, it would have been a profit of about 53K, but still, the E-75 is not a cheap tank to play, especially when you fire 23 shots. So making money on a defeat on a standard account, hats off to you, sir. That was just a very, very good display of gameplay. Just unfortunate that it ended up being a defeat. So, well, I hope you enjoyed that battle. I definitely enjoyed watching it. I watched it at like 2 in the morning a couple nights ago when I had some pretty heavy insomnia, and it was actually so exciting that I was unable to go to sleep after watching it. So I definitely enjoyed it. Thanks for sending it in, Roachie. Just if you want to send replays in to me, I would ask that you're a subscriber to my channel. But if you want to send in replays, you can send them to CaptainDorgesArmory@gmail.com. I will put the link in the description and on the screen in a couple of different locations. So if you want to send replays in to me, send them to CaptainDorgesArmory@gmail.com. If you feel the need, you can give me a little bit of a rundown on your thoughts throughout the battle. I definitely like that. It gives me a little insight into your mindset, so that when I'm watching it, I can kind of think, well, hey, I knew that he was thinking about this, and that is exactly what I would be thinking about. That's cool. Or, I might learn a thing or two from you, and, if I know what you're doing and you teach me something new, I can share it with everybody. So that's definitely good. If you have post-battle results, like screenshots or anything like that, send them in with the replay. If you don't have them, you can upload your replays to worldoftanksreplays.com. This is actually, Roachie had uploaded this himself, I guess. Yeah, uploaded by Roachie. I tried to upload it. I didn't know if he'd have it up here. So I tried uploading it myself, and he'd already uploaded it, so it just spat me out a link straight to this battle, which was nice. So I can get post-battle results from here if you don't have them posted yourself. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. I definitely enjoyed it. It was just an epic game. Again, my hat's off to you, sir. So, guys, just until next time, just remember this is Captain Dorja, and you can never have enough big guns.